Hello, everyone. I don't have a voice, but you're still listening to Country Pocket on WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 FM. Today, we're here with Twisted Pine. We have three members of the band with us today: Kathleen Parks, Dan Bowie, and Chris Sartori. Um, they are promoting a new album and a concert coming up on Thursday at Drum with Dan Tall Buildings that's located in New York City. How are y'all doing, guys?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, doing great, Trevor. Thanks a lot.
So good.
The first song you just heard was called After Midnight. Um, so I just want to start off with for those of us who haven't spent a night at a bluegrass festival, just how interesting do things get?
There's a wide range. There's you've got the performers on the stage getting the audience members like kind of riled up. You've got the hippie dancers on the side with the sweet little whatever those little things are that they like twirl around in the air. They're really colorful. You've got your drinkers, you got your smokers, you've got your popcorn eaters, and yeah, late night it can be really fun to go to different people's campsites and just see like the different like camping setups and like what people like to place importance on for their campsite to bring a good vibe. And yeah, there's like all sorts of stuff, but it's a very inviting scene, to be at like the bluegrass and folk festivals. Like, um, yeah, people just want to be having a good time and they want you to join in with them.
So you're describing a scene I think I'm very familiar with. Now, how do things go when the show officially stops? Does that mean the music stops?
Definitely not. Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. That's kind of when the real fun of the festival is just getting started, um, because everybody goes back to their campsite. Everybody starts breaking into their cooler. They start setting up drinks. They start grilling, and build a fire. Start picking tunes and start playing music. And like that's really the whole thing about um, bluegrass festivals. And that's very much like where we very much kind of the scene that this band kind of like grew up in. We kind of all we didn't meet at group bluegrass festivals, but we like met and then we kind of went to a lot of bluegrass festivals just as like a performing band, but also just as like people just hanging out and kind of really kind of got our a lot of our kind of formative bluegrass musical experiences at festivals and just hanging out late night and playing tunes around a campfire. And yeah, that's just kind of what the song we wanted to immortalize in that song.
Yes, and certainly a little bit of the rowdiness as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I first heard you on an EP that was primarily covering Bill Monroe. That's not even available anymore. Um, Tell me how you've evolved since then, because you have certainly changed.
Yeah, well, in those early days, we were really, really trying to be just like a trad bluegrass band in a lot of ways. And in that period, we were learning a lot of tunes. We were still in the learning phase of just like that type of music. And so since then, we started writing our own songs, and then we started letting other styles of music that we listen to a lot, like funk, R&B, even there's some jazz influence in there as well. But we've let those influences come out in the writing, and like yeah, it always like weaves in all these different directions, And so you never really know what you're gonna get when you start writing a Twisted Pine album because it really depends on what we've been listening to the last couple of years. And so this record really shows like even a countryside of our writing that we've been exploring more a little bit. But very much there's still an R&B feel, there's still funk, there's still like some really proggy instrumental music too. And yeah, everybody's influences like come out when we play together.
Yeah, and the flute. Um, Speaking of bluegrass festivals, how is it received when you're jamming with everyone and out comes the flute?
Usually pretty well. People get excited about the flute because it's so unique, and Anne is usually the only flute player at the jam. Although recently there's been an influx, I think, of flautists. I think she's kind of she's building a little flute army, and so it's getting more common. But there's a lot of I mean, especially in the way Anne plays, she kind of is so seamless in blending her sound in with playing with more traditional instruments that usually people are pretty stoked.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're moving on to the next track, Goosebump Feeling. You talk about, finding joy and love again and again. Um, Perhaps the most interesting lyric there is talking about thinking that you wouldn't feel it again. Explain to me what you mean by thinking, this is only a once in a lifetime experience.
Mm. Well, yeah, I mean, I think when I was writing that song, there's I just keep recognizing that in life, there's just these lulls and then there's like bits of excitement and like transition and like through all of those, there's just so many types of feelings that come up along the way. And so, you can go through like a really dark period and then come out on the other side thankful to be alive, thankful to have made it through that really hard time and get to feel just like even like the simplest parts of life and simplest parts of enjoyment again. Because I recognize now that that's just kind of what life is. It's just continuous ups and downs, and sometimes you'll even out, but it's really nice when you catch a high again. So that's a little bit what I was talking about when I was writing Goosebump Feeling, and yeah, I hope other people relate to that as well.
Yeah, it comes in waves.
Yeah, exactly. In Long Island, that ocean.
Yeah, we call it the sound here.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Um, Joy, such a big component of this album. Um, and maybe not the emotion you'd most stereotypically associate with bluegrass. Tell me about wanting to bring such joyful energy to this music.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment, Trevor. I don't know that it was necessarily a conscious decision. I'm like, oh, we're gonna really lean into, the feelings of joy. But I think that like, you know, in general, I think like when the four of us get together and get on stage and play music, there is certainly an element of kind of playfulness and fun and kind of joyfulness and humor, just in our personalities that comes out in our music, definitely. And that's like kind of, and we've been on the road a lot the last couple years, and really kind of been just working on our sound as a group, on stage and on tour. And so kind of like that's just kind of, for whatever reason, that's kind of I guess you could say that like that's the feeling that like comes out when we're performing on stage, and that we give to an audience, and that audience is, may relate to, or like about us, like about a Twisted Pine show. And so yeah, like with the writing of the album, there weren't a whole lot of specific, like when we started writing for the album, there weren't a lot of overarching things like, oh, we want to do this. We just kind of had we just threw everything on the table, and kind of selected the best parts, and kind of like fine-tuned things and developed things. And then I think what was left was, I think, very much that feeling of like, of what it feels like when we play on stage. I think that's like really what we wanted to capture. So that's, I think, where all the joyfulness, the playfulness, kind of some of the randomness of it, like there's some like a little bit of like kind of really random and silly parts to the album, and that's just kind of our vibe on stage and like on the road. I
I
would
think
say.
I think there's a lot of I think to build on that, there's a lot of joy in our music, and I think uh, I don't know, it almost feels like radical in a way, because there's so much just sorrow out there in the world, and so it feels like the thing that we can generate for ourselves and then give to our audience. So yeah, I don't know. It feels like one of the things that we've really adopted and feel passionately about conveying.
All right, we're going to hear Goosebump Feeling, and we'll be right back with Twisted Pine.